Now then, Vinyl Monkey here for part two, I suppose you'd say, of 1977. This is the North and Central America bit. Yeah, 1977, well, specifically think about August 1977, and I suppose over here on this side of the pond, John Lydon and company were literally clubbing to death the rancid dinosaurs of British prog and rock music, and thus saving us from their misery. But over on the other side, in the USA, the king of rock and roll was literally dying from some sort of lethal combination of prescription drugs and cheeseburgers, apparently. But yeah, Elvis died August 1977. I've stuck an anecdote about where I was when I heard that news on one of my early videos when I was running through the alphabet with some records. So I'm not gonna tell it again and piss off the 23 people who watched that one. You'll have to go back. You have to go back in my catalogue and find that if you want to hear that anecdote. But anyway, yeah, so 1977, the year the king of rock and roll died. This is my favourite 10 vinyl albums that I've got in this collection from North and Central America. Just want to mention a few that didn't get in the top 10, and this is a lovely album. This is Mel Haggard's tribute to Elvis, My Farewell to Elvis, that he obviously rushed out, I suppose. He rushed straight into the studio, and he topped and tailed with a couple of his own things, but then went through some of the great Elvis songs: In the Ghetto, Don't Be Cruel, Love Me Tender, Heartbreak Hotel, Blue Suede Shoes, Are You Lonesome Tonight. Brilliantly done. Mel never did anything that wasn't great. Beautifully sung and played. A really lovely and genuine tribute. But that didn't make me top 10. Neither did Tom Waits' Foreign Affairs. This is a lovely album actually, but it's Waits at his sort of storytelling, barfly storytelling phase. I think he was getting a bit tired of this sort of format by this album, and it's maybe not as strong as the ones that preceded it. And then there were some good soul albums I've got from 1977. The Floaters with the brilliantly cheesy, over-the-top Float On, which you remember as a single, as when the singers all introduced themselves and their star signs, and really, really cheesy. But on here, there's a gorgeous, velvety 11.5-minute version of that single. So yeah, that's the Floaters. The OJ's, great Philadelphia band. This is Travelling at the Speed of Thought. Good album, yeah, good Philly album, but maybe they were past their best, their most creative, although some good Kenny Gamble sort of songs on there. And then Billy Paul made some great albums in the 70s. This is a good one, Only the Strong Survive. Again, socially conscious lyrics sort of stuff, but not quite in the top 10. So what did get in the top 10? Well, at number 10, joint number 10, I keep sticking joint number 10s in just to squeeze another record in and make my job a bit easier, but I've got two very different jazz albums as my joint number 10. I've got Herbie Green, The Fox, and I've got Weather Report's Heavy Weather. Now I really thought when I started this week's listening that this one would have been higher up, Weather Report, because I'm getting more and more into jazz fusion actually, and yes, a great band, Weather Report, some great players in it. And this, I think the critics regard this as one of their strongest albums, and it is a good album and I enjoy listening to it, but I think the album is dominated for me a little bit too much by the sort of synthesizer keyboards of, and I think you pronounce it Zovenel, the European guy, the sort of band leader if you like, and it's more him rather than Wayne Shorter's saxophone, which maybe I would have preferred. And I think I think what he does is he gives it a bit of an 80s sound, which always puts me off. I mean, it starts with the brilliant Birdland, which is really, really infectious sort of tune. You'll have probably heard that tune. A bit repetitive, but a really good, infectious sort of jazz tune. But canny album, but I don't know, I didn't quite enjoy listening to it maybe as much as this one. This is Herbie Green, who's a trombonist. I absolutely love the trombone, and this album, I imagine this is like being in a sort of sophisticated, elegant, smooth nightclub and just listening to the house band, and it's really, yes, smooth and sophisticated. Although I've obviously never been in a smooth and sophisticated nightclub. We never had such a type of nightclub here in Hartlepool in North East England. But anyway, they're my two number 10s, both good jazz albums, very, very different ends of the jazz spectrum. Herbie Green, The Fox, Weather Report, Heavy Weather. My number 9, Jonathan Richman again. I suppose this is his second album. Charming, simple, minimalistic, naive, life-affirming, uplifting, restorative. I mean, it's just an absolute tonic to the sort of bullshit that can envelop your life. And look at the most naive, awful cover with the band there on it. But yeah, just listen to this, it just makes me want to run out into the street and hug somebody. And you know, we're not really into huggy around here where I live, but that's the sort of feeling it invokes. Beautiful stuff. Absolutely love Jonathan Richman, and that album is Rock and Roll with the Modern Lovers. My number 8, this is Joni Mitchell. Joni Mitchell goes full on jazz here, really. This is her collab. This is Don Juan's Reckless Daughter. It's a double album. It's got, you won't be able to see those lyrics in tiny little letters, but it's got millions of lyrics. It's, yeah, extremely jazzy. She's actually collaborating with some of the members of Weather Report. And Wayne Shorter's sax is gorgeous when he lets loose with the saxophone solos on here. Absolutely superb. It's got a beautiful song, Paprika Plains, which takes up all of side 2. Really, really gorgeous stuff. For me, yeah, why isn't it a bit higher up in the chart? Again, it's got that little bit of 80s sound, and I think Jaco Pastorius's bass guitar is way, way far too up in the mix, giving it a real, yeah, a sort of 80s sound, although this was obviously set 3 years before the 80s. But good album, Joni Mitchell, my number 8. My number 7, I absolutely love this. I could never ever convince my mates to take Leon Redbone on board. This is Leon Redbone's Double Time. I think it's his second album. I seen this guy in a whistle test and I just thought, oh, absolutely fantastic. And basically what he does is he does sort of standards from the 1910s, 1920s, but in a very idiosyncratic style, beautifully played and sang. So Diddy Wah Diddy, Shine on Harvest Moon, If We Never Meet Again This Side of Heaven, absolute classics. There's a picture of the guy himself, sadly deceased now, but lovely stuff. Leon Redbone, Double Time. The next album, well, what to say about this? This is my number, 6? This is Suicide by the band Suicide, a New York band. Just 2 members, there they are on the back, Alan Vega and Martin Rev. Alan Vega sort of sang in a style that was, I don't know, reminiscent of a sort of demented cross between Elvis Presley and Gene Vincent. And Martin Rev just played what he calls the instrument, which is some sort of synthesizer thing that he holds onto. So there's no guitars, no drums, no piano or bass or anything like that. Just the singing and the instrument, and it can make for a challenging listen, although side one is superb, particularly the opening track, Ghost Rider, but all the way through side one there are, you pick up, they are tunes, they are things which you can feel and experience positively. Side two is just 2 tracks, and the first track, the longest track on the album, I don't know what is it, 12-13 minutes or something, Frankie Teardrop. Oh dear me. So the lyrics are about a guy, Frankie Teardrop, who basically murders his own family, his partner and his children. Then he kills himself, and then he descends into hell. And the descent into hell and the shrieking and screaming, and it's horrific, absolutely horrific stuff. It's the most challenging stuff I've heard actually since John Lennon's Plastic Ono Band debut album. But it really gets to you, and it makes it really difficult to listen to the pain coming across in it. But is it art? Yes, it's art. It's great stuff. Suicide by Suicide, my number 6, I think we're on. My number 5, this is a real Marmite album. This is Leonard Cohen's Death of a Ladies' Man. This is a bizarre, so Marmite, what do I mean by Marmite? For anyone who in the world who doesn't know what that stuff is, it's like a yeast extract type stuff, but either love it or hate it. And some people think, or many people think, this is Leonard Cohen's worst ever album, and some people think it's one of his best albums, and I'm in that second camp, I think. It is a bizarre collaboration between Leonard Cohen and Phil Spector, where Leonard Cohen's lyrics are perhaps more brutal, more explicit than usual even for him, and they're set alongside these sort of like retro, thick, heavy productions typical of Phil Spector, so it's a real juxtaposition. And the mixing is bloody awful. Cohen's voice, which I think is a marvellous thing actually, Leonard Cohen's singing voice is, and it got better and better and better as he got older, but it is a marvellous thing anyway, is sort of way down in the mix, really muddy and swampy, but despite all that, this is brilliant Cohen poetry. I loved it. I'm not sure Leonard did actually. He went into sort of hibernation for 5 years after this before he produced anything else. But anyway, it's my number 5, Death of a Ladies' Man, Leonard Cohen. My number 4, 4 and 3 actually. This guy actually had 3 albums out in 1977. And one of them I didn't put in my top 10. I didn't put his collaboration with former stooge James Williamson's Kill City, but this is Iggy Pop. This came out, the record company put this out in 77 really because he'd done well with the other 2 albums that he had put out, and they'd actually recorded this I think back in 75, so I'm not including that in my top 10, though I think it's a great album actually. So I'll put that one down, but the 2 I've got at number 4 and 3 are The Idiot and Lust for Life. And look at Iggy Pop, could you get 2 more different photos here where he's sort of tortured and twisted and looks like he's in pain and starving, and this one where he looks almost human really. He looks in good fettle, and that reflects really the style of these 2 albums. So which one I'm going to put? I'm going to put The Idiot at number 4. Listen to them on a different day, I might reverse it, but The Idiot is both of these are collaborations with David Bowie, but I think this album for me, and I may be wrong here, is a bit more Bowie than Iggy really. I think this really sits alongside Bowie's Berlin trilogy. It's sort of dark and introspective. Some great stuff on here, Night Clubbing, I love, Fun Time, Dum Dum Boys, China Girl you'll be familiar with. Iggy brought it out as a single, didn't do much, but then Bowie brought it out a couple of years later and did really well with it. Iggy Pop, 1977, I've seen Iggy Pop twice in 1977, both at Newcastle City Hall. I think one was March, one was September, October. And I think it was the first one where Bowie actually played piano for him. But there were great gigs, absolutely fantastic gigs, and I think it was the second gig where Iggy really went full on Iggy. He was rolling around, there was broken glass on the stage, there was blood, there was scrapes and scratches, his clothes were off, his trousers came down, his willy came out. I'm absolutely certain of that. I mean, if anybody else was there, but that's my memory of it. But full on Iggy in the second one, but both brilliant gigs. But that's my number 4, The Idiot, obviously named after Dostoevsky's novel. And the second one, Lust for Life, with the brilliant title track, There Goes Johnny Yen Again. Yeah. What else have we got on here? We've got The Passenger, fantastic. We've got Tonight and Success. Brilliant tracks. Much more rockier, much catchier, much more upbeat than The Idiot. Great album nonetheless. My number 3, Iggy Pop, Lust for Life. So, what's my number 2 and 1 from 1977, North and Central America? Well, this was a difficult choice for me, what to put as 2 and 1. In the end, I opted to put Bob Marley's Exodus at number 2. This is Bob Marley at his very, very best. This is the album that came out not that long after he'd been shot and very badly injured when he was involved in the political campaign in Jamaica, and he was campaigning for, I think, it was the presidential elections, and he was campaigning for Manley, wasn't he? Yeah. Anyway, following that, he'd been moved over and located himself into London, and he produced this album, Exodus, Movement of Jah People. Just brilliant songs and melodies, absolutely beautifully sung. I think this is Bob Marley's best ever singing. The band was superb, really tight, really tuneful. Every song on this album, actually, it feels like a greatest hits album, although it's not. It's just, you feel so familiar with them. So they're so easy to listen to, yet still so poignant. So yeah, Jamming, Waiting in Vain, Turn Your Lights Down Low, Three Little Birds, One Love. I mean, that's just one side of this album. Absolute classic after classic. And I've got that as number 2, so it'll have to be a good one that's number 1, and it certainly is. This is this is Television's Marquee Moon, Tom Verlaine and Television, and this is just beautiful, opaque, poetic lyrics set to really angular, spiky, occasionally dissonant sort of guitars, but it is 8 sort of perfect songs. Really, it's one of those albums where it feels like there isn't one note or word too many or too few. It just feels like perfection. It's an absolute classic. The title track, Marquee Moon, which has got a sort of a 3 or 4 minute passage in the middle of it where the 2 guitarists, Tom Verlaine and himself, and Richard Lloyd, sort of play off each other. And it's nothing intricate, it's not for sort of heavy guitar freaks or anything, but it's just beautifully done. And rather than me waffle on about it, I'll read what Patti Smith, who I've got to say, she was friends with Tom Verlaine, and some of Tom Verlaine's singing sounds like Patti Smith, or does she sound like him? I'm not sure which. They were both part of the CBGB's sort of club scene in New York, but she wrote a review in some American rock magazine. And she says it beautifully. She says, I went to see television whenever they played, mostly to see Tom with his pale blue eyes and swan-like neck. He bowed his head, gripping his jazz master, releasing billowing clouds, strange alleyways populated with tiny men, a murder of crows and the cries of bluebirds rushing through a replica of space, all transmuted through his long fingers, all but strangling the neck of his guitar. Yeah, beautiful writing. Patti Smith, that is, on Television, my #1 album, Television Marquee Moon from 1977. So that's it from me. As you can see, I'm just getting ready for tomorrow, being St Patrick's Day. I'll have the full ensemble on tomorrow. But I hope you might join me probably next week once I get rid of the hangover and everything and get on to listening for 1978. Cheers, ta-da.